Hi besties, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Rachel and welcome to a very exciting video. In today's video, I'm going to be doing the third installment of reading my subscribers' fantasy romance recommendations. I have done this twice before. I will have both of those vlogs linked down below if you want to go watch those. But essentially, I'm going to be reading 3 books in this video that were recommended to me by you all via my Instagram stories. So I actually posted the story just like 6 hours ago. So as of right now, I don't know what all 3 fantasy romances are going to be, but I do know what the first one is going to be because there's one book that keeps getting recommended by so many of you. I have never had a book recommended to me by so many of you all at once. It is absolutely crazy. So clearly you guys want me to read this and I'm really excited about it because it is a book that is definitely on my radar, and that is Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli. So this book did come out recently. It is a traditionally published fantasy romance. I want to say it came out in February or March, and I have seen quite a bit of buzz about it. I have already started this. I was listening to the audiobook while I was getting ready this morning. I'm only on page 65 though, so I'm not very far into it, but this book is an enemies to lovers fantasy romance between a witch and a witch hunter. So our main character's name is Rune. She is a witch living in a kingdom where witches have been banished and demonized, but our main character has been able to hide her identity and is actually a bit of a vigilante. She knows that there are other witches still living in the kingdom, trying to survive, trying to escape, and so she takes on this persona of the Crimson Moth and helps witches escape this very deadly kingdom. In her regular life, she presents as this very kind of like airheaded socialite. People don't really take her seriously, but that is exactly what she wants because she does not want anyone to suspect that she is a witch and that she is also smuggling witches out of the kingdom. Enter our love interest. His name is Gideon and he is the captain of the guard. He absolutely hates witches. He is responsible for capturing the most witches, and he has known Rune for a while. He doesn't really think too much of her. He has really bought into this sort of like airheaded heiress persona that she puts on. But when Gideon finds out that the notorious Crimson Moth has been using merchant ships that are owned by Rune, he becomes very suspicious of her. So he's going to seduce her so he can figure out what is going on with Rune. How is she connected to the Crimson Moth? What is the tie there? And then Rune also wants to get close to Gideon because Gideon recently captured a witch who was very important to her and she wants to try to save her. So we essentially have 2 people who are going to be deceiving each other for their own gain, but they're going to end up falling for one another. And I love that. I love this like double romantic deception. Like truly that is chef's kiss. And as I said, I'm just a little bit into it, but number one, first impressions, I really like the writing style. I really like Rune. I love this double persona that she plays. She really leans into this just like socialite who doesn't really care about anything and lets people believe the worst of her. But in fact, she is so smart, so cunning, and so resourceful. And I'm really excited to see how she develops as a character. And then Gideon, our little sad boy, our captain of the guard, he hates witches. You can definitely tell that he has some demons, that he has some things that he's working through. So I'm really excited to see these 2 characters who seem quite at odds come together. And whenever they realize that they're essentially playing one another, I'm sure it's gonna just absolutely blow up in their faces in the best way. So I'm really excited about this. I'm glad that so many of you have recommended this to me, and I'm so excited to see what the hype is about because truly never had a book recommended to me this much in my entire life, and I'm very excited about it. So for the rest of the day, I'm going to keep an eye on my little Instagram story and see what the other 2 books I'm going to read are, and of course continue to read Heartless Hunter. So I will give you guys kind of my more in-depth thoughts once I get a little further into this book and give you guys an update. Bye friends, so it is the next day and it is time for my first official check-in for reading my subscribers' fantasy romance recommendations. So first, I'm gonna let you guys know my thoughts on Heartless Hunter so far, and then I'm also gonna let you know the 2 other books that were recommended to me the most. I'm sure you guys already know because I'm gonna put the books in the thumbnail, but I will be officially announcing it here in just a second. But first, let's talk about Heartless Hunter. So currently, I am 49% of the way through this book, and you guys, yeah, I get it. I get why so many of you recommended this to me after we talked yesterday because the poll officially ended this morning after it was up for 24 hours. So many of you recommended Heartless Hunter, and I see why. This is so good. Honesty hour, really quickly, besties. I wanted to read this, but I didn't have like the highest hopes. I didn't have the highest expectations because with traditionally published fantasy romance, other than Sarah J Maas, of course, she is the queen, but I feel like it's very hit or miss. I just really tend to gravitate towards indie fantasy romance, and that is just what I love. That is what I gravitate towards. That is where I find most of like my all-time favorites. So I just didn't really know. I didn't really know how this was gonna work for me. I think this is also technically YA. I think maybe I'll look into that, but just overall, I wanted to read this because I had heard some good things, but I wasn't like, oh my God, I'm so excited for this. This is gonna be incredible. This is really just making me look like a clown, honestly, because this is really good. It is exceeding my expectations. I love the character dynamic. Okay, I'm a little bit all over the place, but one of the things that sticks out to me about this book so much is the pacing. It is so well paced. I have not been bored at all during this book. Like every single chapter, something new and exciting is happening. And it's really refreshing. I feel like I have not read a book that has had such great pacing in quite a while. Like even some of my all-time favorite books, they have lulls. They have maybe like 50 pages where it's just like, okay, maybe we can move on, you know, and get to the good stuff. But every single chapter is exciting and action-packed and we learn something new. And I'm just really loving how fast-paced this is, but it doesn't feel like we're missing out on anything by how fast-paced it is. Hopefully that makes sense. But really liking that aspect of this book. It just stuck out to me. And then our two main characters, Rune and Gideon, are just, I love them so much. Gideon, yeah. Absolutely, yes. He is our sad boy, tortured. He would love the Torture Poets department. Like he has so many like internal things he's struggling with and you can just tell he wants to be loved, but he has this hard shell. I really love him. I'm really excited by him. He's just such a fun character. And then our girl Rune, really love her and her dedication to her grandmother's cause. And I don't think that I mentioned this in the last check-in, but the whole reason that Rune is like out searching for this witch, that's kind of the crux of the plot of this book. It's kind of how things get started. Is her grandmother's last words to her were, please go find Seraphine. Things will be revealed if you go talk to her, blah, blah, blah. That's in literally like the first chapter. So that is what sets Rune off on this quest because she wants to like make things up to her grandmother. She is very emotionally driven by that. She has a lot of passion. Gideon has a lot of passion because of things that he has been through. I love the dynamic. I love this like will they, won't they? I love that they both have legitimate reason to be against one another. I wouldn't call them like enemies, I would say. It's more like they're enemies on paper, but with their interactions, there's definitely an attraction, but they know that they should be enemies type of thing, which I'm really enjoying. It was kind of set as a precedent very early on in the book, and so I think I got used to that dynamic very early on, and I'm really enjoying it. The writing is really great. I like the magic system. I'm here for it all. I have some suspicions about some things, about some people that I do not trust, but I'm gonna hold off on those. But this is going well. I'm really liking it. I'm very pleasantly surprised by this book. Very slay choice, besties. Thank you so much. Super excited. Really hope that I love the ending of this book. And yeah, I'm just excited about it. All right, and then the other two books that I'm going to be reading in this vlog. So first of all, I will be reading Trial of the Sun Queen by Nisha J. Tooley. This is a fantasy romance. I believe it was originally indie and it got picked up by a traditional publisher. And I think that this is like The Bachelor meets Hunger Games, I want to say. Obviously we have trials, and I think that those are the comparisons. I think that that's what I have heard. I don't know too much about this book, but I will definitely look more into it before I start it. But I'm very excited about this. This book is on my 24 books to read in 2024, and a lot of you did recommend this. This was the second most requested book that I read, so I'm really excited that so many of you loved it, and I hope I do too. All right, and then the third book that I'm going to read was a bit of a surprise. This is a book that I have heard of, but I don't see too many people talk about it, so I was really excited when I saw many of you say, hey, you should read this book, and that is House of Bane and Blood by Alexis L. Maynard. So I don't own this book. I'll be reading it on my Kindle. This is like a Peaky Blinders-esque fantasy romance. I have not watched Peaky Blinders, but I know like the aesthetic and the vibe and all of that. I think that sounds really cool. I'm excited. I hope we have some mystery. I hope we have some murder perhaps. Truthfully, I don't know anything about the plot, but I just know fantasy romance, Peaky Blinders kind of has that aesthetic. So I hope that I enjoy this one. I have attempted to read one other book by this author, and I forget the name of the book, but it is like a Viking fantasy romance, and I ended up DNFing it. I didn't really enjoy it. However, that is fine. That is okay. No worries, because there are definitely many authors where I enjoy one book by them and I don't enjoy another by them. I'm really hoping that I will like House of Bane and Blood, just as so many of you have. So I'm excited about this. It's definitely refreshing, and I think it's a book that I did not expect so many of you to recommend, but I'm really happy about that you guys are just putting me on to something that I don't see talked about as much. So that is going to be it for now. I'm going to keep reading Heartless Hunter, and then I think I'm going to start House of Bane and Blood next. I think I'll start that on my Kindle maybe tonight as I'm going to bed, and I will let you guys know my thoughts on that in a little bit. Besties, hello. How are you? Happy Saturday. Let's do some cheeky little reading updates. I also have an exciting unboxing that I want to do. That'll be really quick, but we must first discuss Heartless Hunter, which I finished last night. This was so much fun. Oh my God. I could not explain to you how just, you know, I don't even know how to describe how I feel about this book, but it was just so much fun. Oh my God. The ending was so good. What a way to end a book. Kristen, you killed it. Look, I kind of knew some of the things that were going to happen at the ending. I do think there's a little bit of heavy-handed foreshadowing in this book, but it was still such an incredible ending. And there were also things that I did not expect. I fully jaw on the floor in the other room, was completely shook by that. This was such a fun book. This was such a great fantasy romance. I had such a good time. Pacing, as I said, 10 out of 10. We had a very fun romance dynamic between Gideon and Rune, and the plot twists were plot twisting, and I really did enjoy myself. And the way that this book ended, truly like the ending of this book was my favorite part of the entire book because it was just hit after hit after hit. And I think it has set up the next book, which I actually found out is the finale. So this is just a duology. It has set up that finale to be so just, what's gonna happen? Like, that's how I feel after reading this. And I love that feeling. I love not really knowing how we're going to navigate these muddy, muddy waters that we are in. It makes me so happy and so excited to pick up book 2, which is coming out in February of 2025. So we will be adding that to the most anticipated reads of next year list for sure. I think that this is so strong. I think it is so good. I think if you like witches and enemies to lovers and twists and turns and fast pacing, you will really, really enjoy this book. This is sitting somewhere between like a 4 and a 4.5 star for me. While I did have such a great time with it, there's just a couple things that I would change that I think would make this book a 5 star. Number 1, I kind of already touched on it, but I do think there was some heavy-handed foreshadowing, and I just wish that we had pulled back on that a little bit because I did feel like I really knew what was going to come at the end. And a little bit of foreshadowing is fine, and like if you figure it out on your own, whatever, but I do feel like it was just a bit repetitive, and I would have liked us to have more time to figure that out on our own. And then one other thing that I really think would have made this book just even more incredible is I feel like we don't actually get to see Rune being the Crimson Moth. She is this vigilante witch. She is saving people. She is a badass. She's put so much work into being the Crimson Moth and what that means. I would have loved to see that more in action, and I feel like we didn't really get to see a lot of that. We were told a lot about that, but I would have loved to just see her in action a little bit more. I think that that would have helped build up her character and kind of built up the stakes a lot more. So that's really the only thing though. I really loved this book. I think it's so strong. 10 out of 10 recommend. Just a couple of things that held it back from being a 5 star, but I still think that this is so, so good. And I'm so glad that so many of you told me to read this because you guys were right. This is great. I would recommend this to absolutely anyone. And I had so much fun with this. All right. So the next book that I have already started is House of Bane and Blood by Alexis L. Maynard. I am reading this on my Kindle. So as I said yesterday, this is kind of like a Peaky Blinders fantasy romance, definitely steampunk, definitely post-industrial. Our two main characters are Camilla and Nico, and Camilla's family is very powerful in the city that they live in, but they have found themselves in a lot of debt. So in order to get out of that, they end up forcing Camilla into this marriage of convenience with a rival family. And the person she is set to marry is named Nico, who is this very mysterious, suave, kind of smooth talking guy. And while Camilla is not excited about this prospect of being forced into a marriage, she is definitely intrigued by Nico. Nico ends up bringing Camilla into the darker side of the city as he reveals that there have been kidnappings, there has been a lot of crime going on in the city, wars brewing, just a lot of mischief going on. So the two of them, with their own set of power, status, and skill set, start investigating these things that are going on and try to prevent this war from happening. There is also a magical element as this is a fantasy romance, and it is compared to the Grishaverse magic. I haven't seen too much of the magic in action, so I'm not going to speak too much on that now, but that's the plot of this book. I think I'm on like page 100, so I want to say I'm around like 20% of the way through. I am intrigued, but I'm not super entertained at this point. I don't feel super gripped by the characters, and it's tough because I think that this book has so many things going for it. I love the steampunk aesthetic. I love the plot. We have these like warring families, a little bit like mafia style things going on. I think that that is interesting, but as far as the actual execution of things that are happening, I'm just not like there with the characters yet. I don't really feel a lot for them at this point. I am only on page 100, but that's just kind of how I'm feeling. My first impressions, I'm just not super gripped. I'm not super excited. Normally when I'm reading a book and I know that it's going to be like a 4 or 5 star moment, in the first 100 pages, I'm like, ooh, I'm excited. You know, I feel connected to this. I'm excited. I really want to know what happens. Like, I'm really gripped. That definitely happened with The Heartless Hunter, you know, in comparison. And this is kind of a slow burn at the moment. I am not disliking the book, but I just wish that at this point I was a little bit more invested in the characters and what's going to happen. But as always, I will be an optimistic little bitch, and hopefully I will end up enjoying this book. I don't know. It's just kind of slow for me right now, and I want to be more invested, but the aesthetic, the setup, the plot line, that's all working for me. That is very cool. We'll just see how things go. I want to get farther into the book before I kind of give you guys more thoughts, but that's just where I'm at right now. All right, and then finally, I just have a very quick unboxing from Fairy Loot. So I have never subscribed to a like bookish box subscription service, but when Fairy Loot announced that they were going to be doing an adult romantasy subscription, I had to sign up. I was very excited. It felt like the one for me, so I decided to try it out. I have no idea what this is. I'm excited. I think this is the April pick, so let's see what it is. All right, so it's in a little bag. Okay, so the theme was Enchanted Fays, and it is Lore of the Wilds by Annalie Sabrana, which is so exciting because that is a book that I have read, you guys, and I did enjoy myself. It was a 3.5 star. I'm definitely curious to see what happens in book 2, but I thought it was like a decent enough start to a new fantasy romance series. But so exciting. I saw some people kind of like guessing what it would be. And it was a bunch of books that I had literally never heard of. So it's kind of cool that I have already read this book. So let's see what it looks like. Okay, so first of all, there's a little like character card. Look at Lore. She is so beautiful. Oh my God, I love the colors of the trees. It's so beautiful. The aesthetic of this book is fantastic. Lore is absolutely gorgeous. Oh, and there's a little note from the author. That is so cool. All right, let's see what the book looks like. Oh my God. Oh, I am obsessed with the stenciled edges. You guys, look at those. So beautiful. That is super stunning. So they made the background more like, I don't know if the original had a moon, but definitely more blue toned on the cover, and beautiful gilded font and bordering. Oh my God, yeah, this looks so good. Oh, yep. I love end papers. Oh my God, wait, so much is happening. Okay, hold on. I honestly had no idea what this was going to be like, but can we talk about the naked book? The naked hardcover? That's gorgeous. I did not know they were gonna do that. Okay, this is a lot. I'm experiencing a lot of emotions. A lot of things are happening right now. Okay, number one, stunning Lore in the forest, being adorable. Let's see what the back one is. Oh yes, our two love interests looking very dapper. I love this. Oh my God, they're gorgeous. This is very cool and very exciting. And then the party does not stop here, you guys. There's a reverse dust jacket. Oh, Laura's so cute. I love her little freckles. Look at her. She is beautiful. I love this. She's in a little apothecary, which is where she works if you've read the book. I'm obsessed. This is so cute. I love this edition. Oh my God. Okay, I'm so happy with this. I was kind of like, I don't know, a little bit apprehensive to start with a Bookish Box subscription just because I didn't really know how I was gonna feel about it. But this like exceeded all of my expectations. I had no idea what I was getting into, but the art and the detail and the quality of everything is so good. So I'm really excited about this. Oh my God, okay. I'm so happy that I signed up for this. This is awesome. Okay, besties, so here's the plan for the rest of the day. I did just film my May TBR, so I need to edit that, upload it, get it up for tomorrow. And then I really want to just hunker down and read quite a bit of House of Bane and Blood. I want to get farther into that, let the story wash over me, get really into it, and I really hope that I like it because quite a few of you did recommend it and say that you really enjoyed it, so I want to be right there with you. So I'm gonna go do all of that, and then I'll probably start Trial of the Sun Queen tomorrow. I do have the audiobook for that, so I'm looking forward to it, and I will keep you guys updated on my thoughts. Hello, my beautiful friends. I am here for a very quick reading update. I just wanted to discuss with you all House of Bane and Blood as I am about at the 50% mark, a little bit before. I want to say I'm like 45% of the way through this book, and I do plan to finish it today, but I wanted to share my thoughts. The last time we talked, I let you guys know that I wasn't super gripped by the characters or the plot yet, but I do think that there are a lot of amazing like setup pieces here that could be very interesting. However, now that I've made my way almost to the 50% mark, I just don't feel like a lot has happened, and it's super disappointing because once again, love the idea of the steampunk fantasy romance, love when a fantasy romance gives us something a little bit different, but I just don't feel like our characters Camilla and Nico have done a whole lot. I kind of figured at this point there would be a bit more action. They're definitely getting to know one another a bit, but they're not really getting themselves into situations where we can have an interesting plotline developing and then also having like the romantic tension develop between them. I don't know, it just feels a little bit stagnant and a little bit surface level right now, and I think going into it, I wanted a little bit more of that mystery, and definitely with the synopsis of the book, it talks about how they kind of are getting involved with the things going on in the city and the war that's brewing and this bad guy who enters the picture. But at this point, not a lot is happening, so that's not great. And also, this is a shorter fantasy romance. It's about 400 pages. I want to say it's like 416 on the Kindle, and for a fantasy romance, like that is short. I consider that shorter. And so when we're at the 50% mark of a bit of a shorter fan row, and I'm feeling this way, it's just not great, I guess. So I am a little bit disappointed by this one. I was so intrigued by the setup, but I just think as far as the execution goes, it's not really working for me right now. I don't know, the romance between the characters, I don't feel a lot of tension between the characters. I don't feel like they really leap off the page for me very much. I'm not connected to them. I'm not really invested in their journeys like I thought I would be kind of when this first started. At this point, it's just not really doing a whole lot for me, and the plot is just non-existent at this moment in time. So I do think that we are about to kind of get something like where I'm at in the book. There is definitely some action going to be taken, but I just don't know if it's gonna be, as our Lord and Savior Jojo once said, too little, too late, because I just wanted more. I think earlier on I wanted more. The beginning really starts off with a bang, and then it's just kind of flatlined this entire time, and I just don't know if I care enough about these characters to be excited about this book at this point. I wanted to document my feelings on that right now, and I'll let you guys know how I feel. I'm gonna finish this book tonight. I just want to kind of get through it, see how things end. We'll see what happens. I'll talk to you guys later. Hey guys, so it is time for another reading check-in. First, let's talk about House of Bane and Blood, which I did end up finishing. And unfortunately, I did not end up loving this book, you guys. I really wanted to, really liked the beginning elements, really liked the setup of this book, but it just didn't really work for me. And I think the biggest thing that suffered for me was I didn't really connect to these characters. I didn't really fall in love with the romance. Therefore, the entire book just felt a little bit boring to me. And I also just feel like the progression of the plot wasn't done in a way that I particularly enjoy. So I kind of talked about some of those things yesterday, and while the plot definitely picked up in the second half of the book, I'll totally give it that. I think at that point I just wasn't invested in these characters, and nothing really happened to change that for me. I didn't end up falling in love with them later. I wasn't super excited by them. The love interest Nico, he's fine. He's there. Like that's kind of just my review of him. And you know, Camila, she's cool, she's great, but this book just doesn't make me feel anything. And that is what I'm always searching for with books. I just want to feel something. I want to feel excited about the romance or the plot, or think the fantasy elements are really cool and just be really swept away in a story. And that didn't happen. So unfortunately, this book is getting a 2-star rating from me, but I am really glad that I tried this book out because I have been curious about it. And since so many of you liked it, I am definitely glad that I read it, but it's just not for me. And then the final book that I will be reading for this vlog is Trials of the Sun Queen by Nisha J. Tooley. So I have already started this book. So if you don't know, our main character's name is Lore, and in the beginning of the book we find out that she is imprisoned in the Aurora Kingdom, and she has been for the last 12 years with her brother and sister. She doesn't really have a lot of memory of her childhood. Her siblings have told her some things, but she keeps a lot of that hidden from the reader, so we don't really know what her past is like. But Laura's just trying to get by in this very horrible situation she's been in. She just feels so hopeless in her life and is just really struggling, just wants her and her family to hopefully get out one day when her hopes are answered, but not in the way that she thought that they would be. So she ends up getting selected to participate in the trials. The Sun King rules over a nearby kingdom. I think it's actually the rival kingdom to the Aurora Kingdom, and he is looking for a bride. And for whatever reason, our girl Lore ends up being selected to be a part of that competition. So I think I talked about this before, but it's kind of like The Bachelor meets Hunger Games. 12 girls are selected and have to compete in different trials, have to compete in different like tests of knowledge, and they get whittled down to one, and then that person will end up as the Sun Queen and marry the Sun King, who is this very attractive royal that all the girls are just in love with. Our main character Lore, though, is obviously a complete fish out of water. She has not been preparing for this her whole life like all the other contestants have, and she has to fight her way through. Simultaneously, we also get another POV of a character named Nadir, and Nadir is from the Aurora Kingdom. His POV is very interesting, at least early on here, where we're getting bits and pieces of conversations that are happening, and he and his father, the Aurora King, are looking for something has gone missing. And so his POV, I mean, thus far, I'm enjoying it, but I feel like we're getting so little information about him and kind of what's going on with that, which I think is on purpose. But anytime we flash over to his POV, it is kind of jarring because it's just so different from what Laura's going through. I think I definitely prefer being in Laura's head and just kind of following that single plot line, but I'm sure Nadir is going to come into play very soon. So first impressions with this book, I am definitely enjoying myself more than I did with like House of Bane and Blood, just to compare it to the last book that I read. But one thing that I am noticing is our main character does feel very, very young. She just feels a little bit juvenile, and there's actually quite a bit of adult and mature themes in this book, not only with like smut, but also just other darker matters. Please check the trigger warnings before you pick this book up. And so I'm having kind of a hard time putting those two things together, just because it does almost read like a YA at times, which I love a YA, you know, never gonna hate on a YA, but then there are these like very adult moments. And so sometimes Lore's dialogue and the way that she thinks and everything, it's just not really fitting with what's going on with the book. And that's kind of my first impressions, is she does just feel young. I wish she felt a little bit older and a little bit more mature. So that is what I am struggling with right now. But I am entertained and I'm liking where the book is going. I'm liking seeing Lore in this new position and kind of trying to fight her way through this very like high society trial that she has been put into. And I'm very curious about like what the reveals are going to be. And I think a lot has been hidden from the reader thus far. So I'm curious to see where all that goes. But those are my first impressions. I'm having fun, but it does feel a little bit young at this time. So that is probably going to be it for now. I actually think that I'm gonna go finish this because it's not that long of a book and I need to like clean the house and do stuff. So that's what I'm gonna go do. And then I will give you guys my final thoughts on this book and then close up the vlog. Hi besties, so it is a little bit later and I am here to close out the vlog and then also give you my final thoughts on Trial of the Sun Queen. Overall, I enjoyed myself. I had fun reading this book. There were moments that I really did enjoy. There were moments where I found myself laughing to myself, feeling little bouts of, oh, what's gonna happen? And oh, that plot twist was really good. I liked my reading experience with this book. It's just not a favorite for me. And I do think that a lot of that does have to do with the main character feeling very young, and not just her, honestly, everyone kind of felt immature in this book. There were some petulant arguments, there were just juvenile feeling conversations and reactions and dialogue, and I think that that is what suffered for me in this book, because when you go into an adult fantasy romance, I think you just expect a certain level of how a character may act, how the conversations are going to go. And while there were definitely mature themes within this book, I just felt like they were coming from the perspective of younger characters. And so I didn't love it as much as I felt that I would, but I did enjoy my reading experience. I don't regret it at all. I am not sure if I want to pick up book 2. I would love to know, if you have read book 2, how did you like it compared to book 1? Do you feel like it was a step up? Do you feel like the plot gets really good? I would just like to hear your feedback on how you feel about how the rest of the series has gone. So I'm gonna give this book 3 stars. I enjoyed myself, but I'm just not obsessed with it. All right, my loves, so that is going to be it for this 3rd installment of reading my subscribers' fantasy romance recommendations. So I feel like we had a good spread here in this vlog. First of all, we started off so strong with The Heartless Hunter. That was so good. I'm so glad that I read that. I think that the hype is so real with that book, and I cannot wait for the second one. Thank you so much for making me read that, you guys. Like, I loved that. I had such a great time with it, and it's just like definitely gonna be a highlight, I think, of the year for me. And then we took a little dip, and I read House of Bane and Blood, which I think had cool elements, I think had a good setup, but it might just be the writing style that doesn't work for me. As I did mention, I have attempted to read one other book by this author, but I did end up DNFing it, so I might just not mesh with her writing, but just overall not a book that I felt very intrigued by. I was just pretty bored. And then Trial of the Sun Queen kind of fell in the middle. I was entertained, but I do feel like the characters feel young. I wasn't like super obsessed or gripped by the plot, but I definitely think it had some strong moments. So that is going to be it for today's video. Thank you so much. If you did suggest a book for me in that like Instagram story that I did, I will definitely be doing this again. Honestly, I kind of want to do this again this year, like maybe do another one in the fall or something, because you guys always have so many amazing fantasy romance recs, and a lot of them are books that I have not heard of, which just brings me so much joy. So thank you so much if you submit a book. And if you made it to this point in the video and you wanted to let me know, go ahead and leave a red heart and then a butterfly, because that is as close as we can get to the Crimson Moth. Please make sure that you're following me on Instagram and Goodreads. They are always linked down below, and I really appreciate that you watched this video. I hope that you're having a fantastic day. I love you all so much, and I will catch you guys in the next one.